G'day guys, ZiggyD here. Let's talk Prophecy. It has been announced that there will be a new Labyrinth, and with that Labyrinth you'll get 2 additional Ascendancy points, and that's a nice buff for any Ascendancy class, but not all Ascendancy class are buffed equally by this extra 2 points. Sometimes those extra 2 points don't really go into anything useful for the common builds used for those Ascendancies. However, some of them unlock excellent, powerful synergies or get some real nice improvements in flexibility. So I went over this on stream through each and every Ascendancy. That was like an hour though, so I thought I'd break this down into 5 of the Ascendancy classes that I think are getting the biggest buff from these 2 extra points. Now, number 1, believe it or not, is actually Slayer. So one of the considered worst classes in Ascendancy is getting a significant buff from this 2 extra points. Now, Slayer is also getting buffed on top of that with a layout change. Essentially, Impact is now connecting to the starting node, as is Overwhelm. So Impact and Overwhelm are both 2 pointers now. So even not including this 2 point buff, you are now able to do things like play Impact builds that also have Overwhelm. Now I have to say, just as a little bit of an aside, I think Overwhelm is probably the strongest node in Slayer. Stun Slayer's actually pretty solid, even right now that you have to spend 4 points to get it. But when you can spend 2 points here and also potentially play a melee splash build, you're looking pretty good. So with this extra 2 points, however, the real kind of buff that Slayer is getting in addition to that is the ability to take Endless Hunger with Bane of Legends. Now, Endless Hunger continues your leech effect while you're at full life. So normally the limitation on leech is that when you flask up or when your leech caps your life back out, you stop leeching. Now, Endless Hunger gives you excellent sustain, and I did test this quite a bit in the recent 2-week race, and it's actually pretty good. Like, you can play a really tanky, sustain-oriented character with this, and if you're playing like a melee Resolute Technique character who is up in there doing a lot of damage and taking a lot of damage, that allows you to sustain a lot, and it is really, really noticeable. Now, there are some issues with Endless Hunger where if you're playing like a crit build and your damage starts to scale up too high, eventually this becomes useless and you kind of just need to get Vaal Pact. Kind of just an issue with the way Reflect is in the game. But nonetheless, Endless Hunger is still pretty strong. I played it up to 90 in the recent race and it was actually pretty good. Now, however, now that we have that extra 2 points, instead of just going and getting Headsman, which is a nice little onslaught buff, we can also get Bane of Legends, which is very strong as well. 20% of overkill damage leached as life. So if a mob has 1 life and you deal 101 damage to it, then 20 points of life come back to you. Now, often you're doing way more than that, so you get quite a bit of leech from this. And this allows you to, in addition to your regular leech, just stack a huge amount of leech. And that means that you're getting crazy amounts of leech from overkill. If you're using something like Earthquake, which hits really hard, you're going to get a lot of overkill, and none of that is going to be wasted now. It's going to keep you leeching. It's going to make for really, really insane sustain on Slayer. Slayer is going to be the sustain class in Prophecy, and at the same time, you cannot be stunned while that's happening. You're basically always leeching with a build like this, and that cannot be stunned is quite powerful. So Slayer gets a pretty significant buff from this extra 2 points and from the layout change. Now, the next one is actually Gladiator, another duelist class here that's already been somewhat popular. People have been really enjoying gratuitous violence and bleed-oriented builds with this class. Really, really quite powerful. Now, we have some issues with Outmatch and Outlast not really being very good with the bleed setup, since you don't get those frenzied endurance charges from the bleed kills, I believe. So there are some issues here. Now, what you would typically do then is something like this. You get Pain Forge, some extra block, and pretty nice stuff. A nice little defensive boost right there. Now, with that extra 2 points, however, you get to add all of your block as spell block. That is incredibly powerful. So you now just all of a sudden from that 2 points, with this same really pretty strong bleed builds that we've already had people rocking, now you're able to also get 100% of your block chance applied to spells. So if you're getting close to capping out an attack block, not that hard to do with a build like this, then now you can also get that as spell block on top of that. Pretty insane stuff. So that 2 point buff right there is huge. Now, number 3 is the Berserker, and I have to say I love this one because with this extra 2 points, it feels like Berserker is coming into its own. It is reaching its final form. Now, it took me a little bit here, but I realized that Aspect of the Carnage, right, really popular. 40% more damage, 10% increased damage taken. It's the build of choice for a lot of softcore players. Aspect of Carnage really quite strong, that huge boost to your damage. Well, before you were doing something like this, getting Pain Reaver, getting some really nice leech, well, now you can take that extra 2 points and chuck that in Cloaked in Savagery, And now you have not only a build that's doing a huge amount of damage, has a huge amount of leech, all around looking pretty nice, but now you also get Cloaked in Savagery. Now this one gives you 100% of damage leached as life if you've taken a savage hit recently. This obviously has a really nice synergy, and that's what with Aspect of Carnage, 10% increased damage taken. So you're taking increased damage, which means you're more likely to be savagely hit. So there's obviously a really nice synergy between these two nodes, and the idea that you're getting a huge amount of leech so that you can then sustain that back. And I think that this class probably, even at this point, does sustain, you know, maybe even better than Slayer. So, well, hopefully Slayer's getting some other buffs that we'll find out about soon anyway. Nonetheless, I like to point out that this is an S, and that we have Berserker being the true Slayer. So even though Slayer's getting some excellent buffs, Berserker is, you know, maybe even more so, hence it being number 3 on this list. But Cloaked in Savagery, really powerful here, and you're just getting so much power, so much attack speed, so much leech from this, all combined together with that increased chance of getting those savage hits. And we basically have Diablo 3 vanilla in a build here. You guys, some of you guys know what I'm talking about, health bars that do this. Yeah, it's pretty good. So the old Slayer, I mean Berserker, gets a really, really nice buff from these 2 points. Now, Ranger Deadeye also gets some serious love here, bringing it to number 2 on the list because, holy damn, and this one gets me real excited. We now get the ability to get endless munitions. Typically, you would do something like this, or something like this, and you'd go endless munitions, you get the extra AoE, you get the accuracy, you get the extra projectile, the real juicy one right there. A lot of projectile builds, a lot of wonders, a lot of bow builds, even some spell builds really love, you know, that AoE and that extra projectile. Well, now you get to combine that with chain. That is insane. So, like, it's just an exponential increase, being able to get an additional projectile and then also having that projectile and all your other projectiles chaining. And I can easily see that with an additional projectile and chain, you basically in some builds will not have to run a chain gem anymore. I mean, the extra projectile plus the chain, you're getting pretty close to the amount of hits that you'd get with an actual chain gem. So you might clear better with an actual damage gem instead of that chain gem. It is pretty insane. So, and there's no damage penalty associated with these, right? Like, you're getting this extra projectile, this AoE, this accuracy, you're getting this additional chain without any damage penalty like that is associated with the support gems. A huge buff. That extra 2 points is insane. This was the first one I thought of when I thought of this extra 2 points. I'm like, holy damn, we're gonna be able to get chain with the extra projectile, whereas before it was always a choice, you know, do I want to get the chain or do I want to get the additional projectile? And it was a little difficult. You know, usually it came down to, all right, I'm playing a PS build, so I'm going to play endless munitions, or I'm playing a chain build, so I'm going to get the extra chain. Like, that's basically what it came down to. And this means that chain builds, in comparison to PS builds, PS are still going to be really strong, right? Like, they have Deadeye, they have real nice damage scaling, but now the clear speed you're going to be able to get with endless munitions combined with Ricochet, even if you choose to still use the chain gem, you can definitely still do that. And that is definitely a huge buff for Deadeye, in addition to just generally getting some increased flexibility as well. Like, if you're playing a poison scaling build, you can get sharp and venomous and the pierce if you want to with this one here, obviously not not the chain. So some real nice improvements to Deadeye. And then I think the number 1 class that is getting the biggest buff from this extra 2 points, and is a bit of a sleeper at the moment really, is Raider. Raider, I think, is actually a bit more strong than what a lot of people give it credit for. And this extra 2 points is insane. So recently I played a Raider, I tried to make a melee evasion tech, and it worked out really, really well. And I went Avatar of the Veil. Now, a lot of people are really hyped for Avatar of Chase. It's excellent. The thing is, both of these are excellent. When you have 2 4-pointers and both of the final keystone on them are excellent, and you had to make a real hard decision, and it was a struggle for me to decide whether to go Avatar of Veil or Avatar of Chase on Raider when I was playing that build. Both are insanely good. Well, now you can get both of them, and that is absolutely nuts. So let's break this down here. Avatar of the Veil gives you, while you go through this cluster, you get 6% attack dodge, 10% spell dodge while phasing. You get phasing on kill, you run a phasing flask. You basically have perma-phasing up on a build like this. And then you get immunity to elemental status ailments. Chill, freeze, ignite, shock, gone. Don't have to worry about any of those. Very, very easy with a qualityed up duration quartz flask, along with Quartz Infusion. You know, you get the 10% attack and spell dodge on that as well. Very easy to reach dodge cap on a build like this. So you dodge capped, you're immune to status ailments, and you also gain move speed as well. 20% move speed while phasing, 4%, 28% move speed from this line here. Well, before we were doing this, right, we're getting Onslaught, which gives 20% move speed. Now we also get Avatar of the Chase, which increases the onslaught effect. You get another 10% move speed. Now that's 30% move speed and 28% move speed. That's 58% move speed. 58% move speed. So not only do you get an insane amount of defense, tons of dodge, elemental status immunity, from this one you get more melee evasion and more projectile evasion. So you're rocking a fair amount of evasion, you're dodge capped, you got tons of evasion, tons of dodge, move really freaking fast, you phase through mobs, immune to status elements. This is a defensive powerhouse. An absolute defensive powerhouse. And then on top of that, you're also getting a butt ton of clear speed. 58% move speed, 30% attack speed, you know, a decent whack of attack damage and things like that in there as well. You got the attack speed, the extra evasion scaling in here as well. Absolutely crazy. There's also going to be some frenzy builds, like your max frenzy stacking builds now, that will be able to, in addition to doing that, before they kind of had you just choose between some phasing and onslaught, you know, basically free phasing or onslaught, they now also get to choose between getting Avatar of the Chase or Avatar of the Veil. A lot of frenzy stacking builds also stack a lot of evasion. Avatar of the Chase is going to be particularly insane, or you can go for that sweet elemental immunity. Absolutely crazy. Raider gets a huge buff from this 2 points. Definitely the most impactful 2 points from all across the board, even with all the, like, you know, the synergies between the other ones. Just that stacking of two really powerful nodes is crazy. Like, such a strong set of defensive mechanics combined with great clear speed boost as well. I mean, you can't complain about 58% move speed, jeez. I'd like to give a little bit of an honorable mention. It didn't really make the top 5, but I'd like to give an honorable mention to Guardian up here. Guardian gains a lot of flexibility from this extra 2 points. You'll notice that Guardian is mostly made up of 2-pointers, so there wasn't any like crazy broken new synergies here that were broken out, but you know, Guardian's already like a defensive, you know, like a defensive powerhouse or an offensive powerhouse as a support character, right? For your support Guardians, you know, you were getting Unwavering Faith, and then you were choosing, you know, between one of these guys, you know, like if a lot of these are all really good. Bastion of Hope is really insane. You get stun immunity for your party as well as a bunch of block. Prayer of Glory, a bunch of clear speed for your party, as well as the ability to use Warcry's instant, really nice. Harmony of Purpose, basically conduit for your party. Well, you're choosing between one of these, and in some cases it might have been a difficult decision, right? Well, now you can get 2 of those. I mean, what can I say? So, in addition to getting your clear speed bonus with Warcries for your party, you can now also, you know, have them all have conduit, or you can get your block, and you can incorporate block into this character as well, and on top of that, give everyone stun immunity. I mean, your party's gonna love you even more than they already did. If you weren't already like being just constantly spammed with party invites as a Guardian, you're definitely going to be now. So Guardian gets a special mention in there. So guys, hopefully you found this interesting and inspires you with some of the builds you might start planning and working on and lead up to Prophecy. If you found this interesting, maybe you found some other nice synergies with certain builds you're very excited about getting 2 additional points, let me know in the comments below. I'm very keen to read them and some of the builds that you feel have been unlocked by this extra 2 points. Anyway guys, that is it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.